You're scrolling through your phone when suddenly you realize that the Z Fold 8 is just 6 months away. But here's the crazy part. We already know almost everything about it thanks to a flood of leaks and rumors. And trust me, some of these updates are going to blow your mind, while others might leave you scratching your head, wondering what Samsung was thinking. So grab your favorite snacks because we're about to dive deep into everything we know about the Z Fold 8. From game-changing display technology to some questionable decisions, this phone is shaping up to be quite the conversation starter. Let's start with the biggest rumor that has everyone talking, a completely crease-free display. Now, if you've been following the foldable phone scene, you know that display creases have been the Achilles heel of every single foldable device. But here's where things get interesting. This crease-free technology has actually been rumored for the iPhone Fold for quite some time now, and it looks like Apple might finally crack the code. But plot twist, the display is supposedly being manufactured by Samsung themselves. So you can probably guess which other device will benefit from this breakthrough technology. That's right, the Z Fold 8 is expected to feature this same revolutionary display tech. Now, before you get too excited, Samsung has made it clear that their version won't be exactly identical to Apple's panel. But it's going to be very, very similar in terms of the core technology. And we know this isn't just wishful thinking because this new display panel was actually showcased at CES 2026. The magic behind this crease-free display lies in something called a dual ultra-thin glass structure. But that's not all. The backplate is going to be manufactured using brand new laser drilling technology. This laser drilling process is designed to reinforce the entire foldable structure, which should help eliminate that annoying crease even further. And yes, this is the exact same technology that Apple is allegedly planning to use in their iPhone Fold. So what about the actual specs of these displays? The outer display is expected to measure around 6.5 inches, while the inner folding display should be approximately 8 inches. This means Samsung is keeping the exact same form factor and aspect ratio as last year's Z Fold 7. So if you were hoping for any major changes in size or proportions, you might be disappointed. Peak brightness is also staying put at around 2600 nits, which is honestly plenty bright for most situations. Both displays will feature 120 Hz refresh rates, and the outer display will be protected by Gorilla Glass ceramic too. But here's my one complaint about the current Z Fold 7 that I hope they fix. The Fold 7's maximum brightness tends to drop quickly, especially in hot environments. It's super frustrating when you're trying to use your phone outside on a sunny day, and the screen keeps dimming. Now let's talk about the overall design and build quality of the Z Fold 8. The general design is expected to remain pretty much identical to the Z Fold 7, but there's one notable change. Samsung might be ditching the titanium backplate used in the Fold 7. Instead, they're likely going back to CFRP, which stands for carbon fiber reinforced plastic. This is the same material they used in their previous foldable phones, and it's probably a cost-cutting measure. The frame will still be made from the same armor aluminum that was actually made 10% stronger on the Z Fold 7. The same goes for the Z Fold 7's upgraded armor flex hinge and multi-rail structure, which will likely carry over to the Fold 8. But here's my honest experience with that aluminum material. It's actually surprisingly soft. My Z Fold 7 literally slid out of my pocket while I was sitting down and fell maybe 10 centimeters at most. That tiny drop was enough to create visible scuffs on the frame, which was pretty disappointing for such an expensive phone. So I'm really hoping they make the body material stronger this time around. When it comes to thickness, Samsung is apparently aiming for the same measurements as the Z Fold 7. That means 8.9mm when folded and 4.2mm when unfolded. I was personally hoping for an even thinner Z Fold 8, especially since some newer trifold phones are achieving 3.9mm at their thinnest point. But don't get me wrong, these numbers are still pretty impressive when you consider everything that's packed inside. The Fold 7 is still the thinnest foldable phone on the market. But what's even more exciting is the rumored weight reduction for the Fold 8. Early reports suggest it could weigh as little as 200 grams. The Fold 7 already underwent a massive weight reduction, dropping from 239 grams on the Fold 6 to 215 grams. This made it the lightest foldable on the market at launch. If Samsung manages to push that weight down to 200 grams with the Fold 8, it would feel absolutely incredible. Here's why that 15-gram difference is more important than it sounds. On a regular smartphone, 15 grams might not be that noticeable. But on a foldable phone, it makes a huge difference because these devices have such a large surface area. The weight is spread across a much larger area, making any weight reduction far more noticeable in everyday use. What makes this even more impressive is that Samsung might achieve this weight reduction while actually increasing the battery size. After 6 long years of using the same 4,400 mAh battery since the original Z Fold 2, Samsung is finally bumping it up to 5,000 mAh. What Samsung accomplished last year was honestly pretty amazing from an engineering perspective. They kept the same battery size while reducing the device thickness by 25% by making everything else slimmer except the battery. So if they're keeping the same thickness this year, it makes sense that they could fit a larger battery. We don't know yet whether this new battery will use silicon carbon technology or just be a higher density lithium-ion battery. My guess is that it'll be a higher density lithium-ion setup, similar to what we see in phones like the iPhone Air. I'm thinking this because the capacity increase is only about 13%, going from 4,400 to 5,000 milliamps. If this was silicon carbon technology, we'd probably see much higher numbers, maybe around 6,000 milliamps, like the Honor Magic V5. But regardless of the battery chemistry, this is definitely a welcome upgrade. Combined with the more efficient Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 processor and OLED displays, we should see solid improvements in battery life. Unfortunately, that's where the good news starts to slow down, especially when we talk about cameras. This is honestly the most disappointing aspect of the rumored Z Fold 8 specs. The main camera sensor is expected to remain exactly the same as last year's Z Fold 7. We're talking about the same 200 megapixel shooter that's also found in the S25 Ultra. The two 10 megapixel selfie cameras are also staying completely unchanged. The only camera improvements we're hearing about are pretty minor. The ultra-wide camera might jump from 12 megapixels to 50 megapixels, probably using the same sensor as the S25 Ultra. The telephoto camera could get a small bump from 10 megapixels to 12 megapixels. But honestly, that's not nearly enough of an upgrade. The Z Fold 7's main camera is already pretty decent, so keeping it the same isn't the end of the world. The ultra-wide camera is okay, but it could definitely use some improvement. But that 10 megapixel telephoto camera has a super tiny sensor that performs poorly in low light. It's basically unusable once the sun goes down. I was really hoping that would be the sensor to get a major upgrade this year, but it doesn't look like that's happening. Even bumping it to 12 megapixels won't make much difference unless they significantly increase the sensor size. Other foldable phones from companies like Honor and Oppo use much larger telephoto sensors, and the photo quality difference is obvious. Now, when I'm complaining about these specs, keep in mind that the Z Fold 8 is expected to cost around $2,000. That's more expensive than pretty much any other foldable phone on the market. But Samsung is apparently planning to keep the same price as last year, so at least we're not seeing another price increase. There is one piece of potentially good news though. The S Pen might be making a comeback. Samsung removed S Pen support from the Z Fold 7, and honestly, I think that was a mistake. I don't personally use the S Pen very often, but these devices are extremely expensive. With that large inner display, it makes perfect sense to support a stylus for people who want to take notes or draw. Plus, almost every other premium foldable phone now supports a stylus. Here's where things get really interesting though. Samsung might be working on a second foldable phone alongside the regular Z Fold 8. And no, I'm not talking about the Flip 8, that's a completely different product line. Apparently, Samsung is developing something called the Galaxy Z Fold 8 Wide. This would basically be Samsung copying Apple's homework by using the same wider aspect ratio that Apple is planning for their iPhone Fold. Personally, I prefer wider foldables to the tall, narrow design of Samsung's current Z Fold lineup. The Oppo Find N5 really nails the form factor, sitting somewhere between Samsung's current design and a potential wider version. This rumored Fold 8 Wide would have an outer screen of about 5.4 inches, similar to the expected iPhone Fold. The inner screen would be around 7.6 inches with a 4:3 aspect ratio, again very similar to what Apple is reportedly planning. This wider aspect ratio is especially useful when watching movies or YouTube videos, since most content is shot in 16:9 or 18:9. With current tall foldables like the Z Fold 7, you end up with black bars on the top and bottom of the screen. But with a wider foldable, more of that beautiful inner display would actually be used for content. The trade-off is that the outer display becomes shorter and wider, which might make it harder to use with one hand. As for the rest of the specs, like cameras and performance, it's still too early for any reliable information. For now, it's probably safe to assume that everything would be identical to the regular Fold 8, except for the different form factor. Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts on Samsung's foldable strategy. And if you want to see a deep dive into the Z Flip 8 rumors, make sure to hit that like button to show your interest. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on the latest Z Fold 8 news as we get closer to the launch date. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.